All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachakadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, honors and salutations to the hopeful elect, pushing his word in truth, sincerity. Or this is the brother Tawab Akaf from GMS Los Angeles / Empire, coming back with another video in the spirit. And once again, Tawadi Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, for opening minds to this truth. Allow me to wake up another day and put the spirit on me to do another lesson in hopes to edify the hopeful elect. Okay, so what I want to go into in this video is what mindset should we have, being in this faith. Okay, especially the times that we're in. Okay, we're not supposed to be in this mindset of building in this society. Okay, we are building, spiritually we're building. Okay, we're building the world to come, through the teaching of this word, but I'm talking as far as trying to build something tangible in this world, because you got certain individuals that call themselves Israelites. That's where their mind is geared towards. It's all geared towards building something here, because a lot of these individuals, they're comfortable, in this world. Okay, they have the goods of this world. Okay, they enjoy certain benefits of this world. So that has totally corrupted them, totally compromised their beliefs. And this is why, we always get on these other individuals, because majority of these individuals that I'm speaking about, their doctrine is off. Okay, the doctrine is off, their spirit is off. Nothing about them, indicates that they want this place to be destroyed. Okay, and you can see it in their continents. You can see, and how they do their videos. Okay, they go on these different platforms with unbelievers, and the scriptures tell us about that, not to fellowship. With light. What does light have to do with darkness? Okay, don't be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. And clearly, these individuals, they're not following those scriptures, man. And it's just, and of course, it sounds like a broken record, because we keep talking about the same thing over and over again. But that's what the scriptures are saying. Okay, the scriptures say the same thing over and over again. Okay, as it is written, this is the same word you heard from the beginning. Okay, all the way in the beginning. So nothing has changed, except for the times. Okay, but everything that the scriptures speak about, that were written aforetime is written for our learning. Everything, there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, so we're gonna keep saying the same old, and that goes to show you a lot of our people, they look at this truth as something to be entertained by. They're not looking at this thing to be edified, to be built up in the spirit. They're looking at these videos for the wrong reasons, and that's why majority of Israel, okay, especially here in Babylon, is going to be destroyed. Okay, because the Lord is not looking for lip service, man. Lord is looking at actions, man. And like I said, starting off with the video, you got guys that want to build something here. Their mind is not on the world to come, because they basically, the kingdom is here. The kingdom of heaven is here on the earth right now. And that's how they move. That's their whole attitude. That's what the attitude shows. Okay, so I'm gonna bring out these scriptures right here to show you, okay, that mind frame right now is off. The Lord's not dealing with that. Okay, and I'm gonna show you also the mindset that we're supposed to have. Okay, so I'm gonna get right into it, and I pray this be edifying. All right, so this is Luke chapter 6, verse 24. It says, "But woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation." You see that? So the word woe means destruction, and this is Yahweh Shai speaking. Okay, now is money itself wicked? No. Okay, but see, the thing is, in this world that we're in, this world is under Satan's power. Okay, this world is under the vibration of Satan. So in this society, if you have riches, you have a whole abundance of so-called money, which is presently these FRN notes, these debt notes. Okay, there's demons that come with that. Okay, there's a spell that comes with that. And individuals that have abundance of those things, they don't have time for the Lord. Okay, they don't have time to really get into these scriptures, get into these precepts, get into this understanding. Okay, individuals like that is not willing to suffer. They don't want to suffer. That's why they want to accumulate as much as those Federal Reserve notes as they possibly can to avoid the suffering. Okay, and like I said, money itself isn't evil, but when you start to compromise your morals, okay, when you don't have any more integrity, you start to turn a blind eye to certain things that you're not supposed to turn a blind eye to, because you're getting all these goods of this world. That's when it becomes evil. The love of the money is the evil. Matter of fact, let me get that real quick, then I'll come back. Bear me 1 second. Okay, this is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9. It says, "But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare." You see that? Because when you have a whole bunch of money, okay, you have access to your desires, the things that you desire to have. By you having an abundance of money, you can give yourself over to those things. Okay, and see, majority of the people in this society, they don't have no self-control, self-discipline. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen when somebody like that gets a whole bunch of money? They're going to fall into a snare. That's a trap. And we've seen it time and time again. A lot of, especially our people, they become celebrities, they become rich, and they become famous. And after a while, you can see it. They Jake starts to to lose themselves, man. Where they let themselves go. Because Jake already, when Jake grows up poor, Jake is just in survival mode. So a lot of habits our people have, like eating habits, certain things that they eat in their diet, they don't know how to get out of that program, man, that programming. They just stuck in survival mode. When they become rich, they don't even change the diet. It becomes worse. They actually start buying more bullshit, instead of buying better shit, better things to eat. they just increase more of the bullshit because now they got the money to, to buy all that shit, And it don't necessarily have to be food. It can be anything. Okay. Even Jake starts to, go hard in adultery because Jake got money, and a lot of these women in this world, they're just wicked. They're wicked as hell, and by Jake having money, they can pretty much get any woman they want, just because of their financial situation, but what's all that's going to lead to is destruction, man, because at the end of the day, just because you got a lot of money doesn't mean the Lord is dealing with you. Okay, and that's what a lot of our people fail to realize. They fail to understand that part. All right, I'm gonna read it again. It says, "But they that will fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and hurtful lusts," and those things are foolish. And it says hurtful lusts. It's going to end up hurting you in the long run. Okay, because there's only so much you can do in this present world that we're in, man. Okay, and one thing about being an Israelite, Jake has a conscience, man. Eventually, all those riches are not going to be able to, it's not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to run away in your conscience, man. Having all these goods, so-called goods and benefits, okay, it's not going to clear your conscience. Especially those of you that know better, those of you that sold out, okay. Eventually, you're not going to be able to run. You're not going to be able to run away from all your dirt. And the Lord is not going to forget those things, man. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai cannot be bribed. Okay? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai cannot be bribed. Okay? So, you guys that, chasing after a bag, imaginary bag, and the scriptures tell us in Haggai, we have a bag full of holes. So that all that money is gonna go any goddamn way. Like I said, it's foolish. You're a bunch of fools if you think that you're gonna get off scot-free. All right, it says, "But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition." You see that? Going back to these celebrities, a lot of them, they get so much money, that opens up a world. They start getting into drugs. And then by them having so much money, they can have a huge amount of drugs, access to drugs, to the drink, they overdo with the drink. Okay. To the point they destroy themselves, man. They destroy their health. In most cases, it's death. Because think about it. Look at all these celebrities that we've been seeing over the years that have been dying. A lot of these celebrities, they weren't even that old, man. They weren't really up in the age like that. A lot of these celebrities, especially Jake, a lot of them be dying in their 40s, their 50s, So the Lord is showing us just off these celebrities, Here it is, they got all this money, they making all this money, They damn sure doing better than the average Israelite in this society, But yet they're look how they go out, because these, that money it basically it accelerates their life. You know, it cuts their life short because Jake don't have the discipline. They don't have the mind frame, the right mindset. You know, to where Jake can't even be good to themselves when they're in the a so-called better financial situation. Okay, they can't even do good to themselves because they don't have the right mentality, and that just goes to show, you know, money doesn't solve everything, man. Okay, and sometimes it's actually worse. You know, all people don't. Everybody doesn't deserve to be, rich right now, man. You know, that's the last thing Jake need on their mind, because that's not going to bring you closer to the Lord. It's not going to bring you closer to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Okay, especially if you're a wicked ass individual. Okay, all right. It says, for the love of money, see, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Okay, and we've seen it throughout the history, you know, in this world, especially here in Babylon, you know, with Jake, throughout the different decades, Jake going in and out of jail, you know, that criminal lifestyle, you know, to the point that shit went into the music. Okay, because there was a time, you know, when our people would make music, you didn't hear that criminal lifestyle in the music, you know. But Jake started sprinkling those little nuggets, those little seeds. Esau would really start with this damn devil, but Jake would put little seeds in the music over the different decades until what we got right now. Everything is just full blown. It's a criminal lifestyle, man. You look at these young rap niggas. It's like, damn, you can't even be a rapper if you're not a criminal. You know, if you're a rapper, you gotta have all kind of guns on you. You gotta walk around with fucking big ass bodyguards. You gotta have an entourage, you know. And it's crazy because it's like, damn, you know, you just making music. Why the fuck you need all that if you just, you know, making music? But that just goes to show you how demonic that shit is, man. And it's and a lot of these guys these Jakes that grow up in these ghettos, they think that's the only way to make it is to be a damn rapper or an athlete, you know. And that's the problem. That's a problem, man. Okay, so us that's coming in, the Lord that's waking us, the brothers that's the Lord is waking up to this truth. The Lord is changing that mind frame. Okay, because it's only so far you can go in this society as a so-called black man, as a so-called Latino man, so-called Native American man. Okay, and for you to even get on a certain level here, you got to be a sellout. You got to be a coon. Okay, you got to be a homosexual. Okay, you can't even be a man. You know, you can't be no masculine man in this society, especially if you of the tribes, and you speaking on the plight of your people, the oppression that goes on in this place. You're not gonna be you're not gonna be able to obtain those goodies if you speak against this man. Okay, so you guys that's in that mindset, you know, they show you the Lord not dealing with you, man. Yahweh Shemi Yahushua is not dealing with you. All right, it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith. So you got these individuals, they coveted to be rich here. You know, that's their motivation. That's their motive. You know, they don't care about salvation for our people, man. They don't care about the Lord coming back and taking this man out of power so we can get the hell up out of here, man. You know, their whole motive is that dollar bill. Okay, for the love of money. Okay, that's it. Because if this Israelite thing wasn't making the money, they wouldn't even be Israelites. They'll be something else. You know, but with Jake, you know, Jake used the Israelite thing, you know, to make money. Because Jake couldn't make it in the world as a rapper or whatever the hell they was, you know, trying to do in this world. So they used the whole Israelite thing, you know, because they see how powerful this word is, you know, because to go out here on the highways and byways and you know, go into the Bible and speak with authority, you know, it's powerful. Okay, so Jake figured, you know, they can take that, you know, and put the worldly spin on it, you know, get a large following, because that equals money. Okay, but yeah, pretty soon all that shit is gonna come to cease, man. The Lord's gonna cease all that bullshit, man. Okay, and game plan gonna go out the window, especially when all hell breaks loose here. And what all them FRN notes gonna do for you then? You jakes that sold out, what's that shit gonna do for you then? When all hell breaks loose, man. When that shit is worthless, you can't do nothing with that shit. And that's why apostles and elders and brothers on down, you know, been going into that C-hip, because that's where everything is going towards. Everything is going to the MOTB, the mark of the beast. Okay, and a lot of our people are going to take that, you know, and we pray to Yahweh Shemi Shai, the Lord keep His Holy Spirit upon us, and we don't succumb to this bullshit out here. You know, because whoever takes that chip, they're going to be destroyed. So a lot of you guys that's in that comfortable mindset, a lot of y'all are already, whether you know it or not, already in that spirit to take that shit, man. You know, because you don't want to catch hell. You don't want to suffer. Okay? You know, you got guys that, you know, can't even eat bitter herb. Dudes got to eat fucking lettuce, man. What kind of punk ass shit is that? But that just go to show you, you guys, y'all right for the C-hip, you know, because you can't even suffer small things now. How the fuck you gonna be able to suffer the hour of temptation? Anyway, it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. You see, and that's what's going to come. A lot of you guys that's taking bribes, taking the bag, you're going to pierce yourself with many sorrows, man. You know, that shit is going to end up weighing on your conscience. Okay, especially when that judgment comes, man. Okay. All right, it says, but thou, O man of the Most High, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness. Okay, that's the things that we're supposed to be after. Okay, that's where our mind's supposed to be. Righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness. Okay, the riches of this world it's not gonna you know, put someone in this mind frame. The riches of this world is not gonna put righteousness in your mind. The riches of this world is not gonna put godliness in your mind. The riches of this world is not gonna put faith. Okay, it's not gonna put love. It's not gonna put patience and meekness. It's gonna do the opposite. Okay, because like I said, for you to be a Jake in this society, and attain a whole lot of riches, you got to be wicked. Okay? You got to be a homosexual. Okay? You got to deny the Lord. Okay? You're not going to be meek. You're going to be proud. Okay? So this is the mindset we're supposed to have. Now let me get back to the scripture I was holding. Yeah, you know, Lord didn't bring us here to, have prosperity in this land. And you see throughout the decades, those of our people that had their own neighborhoods, they had their own lands, right? They had their own businesses, they had their own schools, they had their own hospitals and all that. What happened? All that shit got destroyed, man, because the Lord didn't bring us here for that, man. Okay? Look at all the inventions Jake invented here in this society. Okay? Jake, Jake out here should be, living good based on those inventions. Based on all these businesses Jake started. Okay? All these ideas Jake came. Well, look at the music industry. The music industry wouldn't be shit without our people, man. You know how this music industry became a multi-billion-dollar industry? It's through our people. Okay? But obviously, the Lord doesn't want us, that's why a lot of Jake ain't really eating like they supposed to, based off all the things that they contributed, because this ain't our rest, man. This ain't our kingdom. Okay? And those of them that did get some little crumbs, look at them. They through. All right, this is back in Luke chapter 6, verse 24. It says, "But woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep." You see that? It said, woe unto you that are full. Okay? And these are the words from our Lord Yahweh Shai. Okay? So if you full, what the hell you need faith for? You ain't gonna be out there teaching. You ain't gonna be out there speaking against those that oppressed you, because you're full. Okay, you're comfortable. Okay, you don't have those hunger pains, man. Okay. You're not mourning. You're laughing. You're in a joyous state. Okay, but that's getting ready to change, man. The Lord's finna flip it. Flip that, man. Okay. All right, I got another one. This is Proverbs chapter 30, verse 8. It says, "Remove far from me vanity and lies." You see that? Because that's what riches bring. They bring vanity and they bring deception. This money in this society is deceptive. Okay? All right, it says, "Give me neither poverty nor riches." Okay? And that's what the Lord does for brothers. Apostles, elders on down. Okay? The Lord gives us just what we need. Okay? Enough to where we can have shelter, food, clothing. Brothers that live in certain areas where they have to have a car, brothers have vehicles to travel to and fro, right? So the Lord gives us enough. Okay, we're not supposed to be in this world, because the more that you try to become rich in this world, the less and less time you're going to be concerned with the Lord's business. Because this what we're part of, this ministry is a business. Okay? And we are storing riches. We're storing spiritual riches. Okay? But if you trying to store tangible riches here in this world, you know, you doing it in vain. Okay? Because what the Lord said about what did the Lord say in Malachi, you know, speaking about Esau, though they build, yet he will throw down. So if you're trying to build here, you a damn fool. Okay? Read again. Proverbs 30:8. Remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. Every brother's situation is different. You got brothers that got wives and children, so the Lord's gonna bless them accordingly. Lord gonna dish them what they need accordingly. Then you got brothers that don't have wives and children. They gonna get what they need. Okay? Or brothers living in certain conditions, brothers dealing with ailments, wherever the case may be. Brothers got different situations. Everybody know their situation. The Lord is gonna, you know, give brothers what they need to be able to handle what they need to handle. Okay? But the Lord ain't gonna give us above our means, man. You know, what we need. And that's the best place to be. You know, to be on that steadfast. Not saying it's nothing wrong, you know, Lord bless, because the Lord does bless brothers, you know, but that's not on brothers' hearts to try to become, you know, super rich in this place, man. That's coming in the kingdom. That's the world to come. Because it's not like we're going to be on the bottom forever. And that's the thing. That's why we always speak about faith, man. You know, we're not going to always be on the bottom. We just got to wait. We got to be patient. This ain't the time to be lifting it up right now, man. Okay? You know, we're going to have that in the kingdom for all of eternity, man. Okay? Fuck this weak ass. This is only for a season. This is temporary. The world that's to come is forever. There's no end. No end in prosperity. This shit is going to end here, man. Okay? All right, it says, lest I be full and deny thee. You see that? Because somebody that's full, they're not starving. Okay? They you know, that's something that's not a concern to them. Okay? That's not a worry on their mind. Those that are full. Okay? They're not thinking about the Lord. You know, because they're not in that they're not in that state of humility, man. Okay? They're not in that state of being meek. Okay? It says, and say, who is the Lord? That's their mindset. Like, who y'all talking about? Right? It says, or lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my power in vain. You see, and none of us is out here resorting to that. Okay? And nobody's out here stealing or committing crime to eat. Because the Lord Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah take care of us. Okay? And we have faith. You know? That's an example of faith. Because a lot of people in this world, you know, when they go through adversity, they tend to blame the Lord. They tend to, you know, they have evil heart towards the Lord, man. You know, people start looking at their situations in their life and see, you know, they see they might look at somebody that has way more than them, and they start questioning the Lord why that person got more than them and all this other shit, you know. and they have an evil heart towards the Lord. You see? But that's not the mindset we supposed to have. Okay? And first of all, the Lord, that the people that are so-called rich, like I said, all that shit is they're getting ready to lose all that shit anyway. All that shit is vain. You know? Lord's taking out a lot of these celebrities, man, lately. Okay? So you jakes out there, y'all want to keep, you know, coveting after these so-called riches out here. You're gonna find out very soon. You're gonna find out all that shit is bullshit. It's all vain. It's all gonna lead to your destruction. Okay. All right. This is Psalms chapter 138 verse 6. It says, "Though the Lord Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai be high, yet have he respect unto the lowly, but the proud he knoweth afar off." You see that? And it don't get no higher than Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, man. It don't get no higher than that power. Okay? It said, though he be high, he has respect to the lowly. You know, the Lord. So the Lord don't give a shit about these rich men on the earth right now. The Lord put these motherfuckers in these positions, man, to show his power. And that's what we gotta remember. Not getting caught up into this, you know, this get rich quick mentality. You know, and like I said, you know, the Lord been blessing brothers, man. You know, and brothers are humble with their blessings, man. Brothers are appreciative of their blessings from Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, man. Okay, but our heart is not in this world, man. Okay, the heart of the elect cannot be bought. It can't be compromised. Okay, and it's all of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, man. And that's why we always say, Lord willing, we be those men. We always say hope for elect, man, because we understand that whoever's of the elect, whoever the Lord has ordained, he has picked before the foundations of the earth. That's who's gonna make it, man. Lord gave those individuals special spirits within them, within those individuals. Okay, they're not gonna break. They're not gonna turn their back on the Lord, man. Okay. All right, I got one more, then I'm gonna wrap it up. Bear me 1 second. This is Matthew chapter 6, verse 6. It says, "But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly." You see that? So this is going to lead into the Father's prayer that the Lord gave to the disciples. You know, and pretty much that prayer covers everything. You know, from the daily bread to keeping us safe. Okay. You know, everything. Okay. So what Yahushua is saying here, wherever we desire, wherever that, you know, we want to ask of the Lord, we have to go to the Lord and pray to the Lord sincerely. You know, whether it be we need to be strengthened in certain areas, you know, increase our faith, increase our understanding. Okay. You know, keep that humble spirit upon us. Okay. Like I read in 1 Timothy, the 6th chapter, man. Okay. We're supposed to follow after righteousness, you know. Supposed to follow after godliness, meekness. Okay. That's what we're supposed to follow after. So we're supposed to be praying for things that's pertaining to those things. Okay. Okay. It says, But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think they shall be heard for their much speaking. Right, we ain't got to do no long, drawn-out prayer. Just we got to be straightforward, humble and straightforward. The Lord knows what we need, but, we got to be honest and upright, It says, Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things you have need of before you ask him. So the Lord, before you even ask the Lord knows what we need, man. Okay? And brothers be in tough spots a lot of times, man. But the Lord knows, and guess what? The Lord always has something work out, man. That's why the Lord has set up a brotherhood. Brothers take care of one another, man. Okay? That's why the Lord, man, this thing is beautiful, man. That's why we shouldn't have that mindset of trying to build something. The Lord is already building with us through the brotherhood. Okay? If a brother gets sick, that's why you got brothers that's, brothers are getting into the herbs, the medicines of the earth. Okay? Brothers are, teaching each other these things, helping each other out with these things. Okay? When brothers need places to lay their head, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Shai, brothers have places to lay their head. Okay? The brotherhood isn't lacking in those things, man. Because the Lord has made all those things possible, and when the Lord sees that the love of brothers are pure and genuine, the Lord would continue to rain blessings on brothers, man. And that's where it all starts, So we're not here to, like I said, the Lord didn't bring us here to build prosperity in this society, man. Okay, we're building spiritually. The prosperity is the world to come. That's when we're gonna really enjoy prosperity. But now this ain't the time for prosperity. Now we're in the process of building that third temple. We're in the process of building the kingdom of heaven, and it starts with this word, Before you can dwell somewhere, before you can dwell in a home, it has to be built first. And our home isn't, it hasn't been built. It hasn't been finished being built. So we have to continue to keep working, and Lord willing, we all endure to the end, and we all get to inherit that crown, man. Get that crown from Yahweh Shai. Okay. So with that, yeah, that's pretty much it. Kind of went longer than I wanted to, but hey, this is spirit. The main thing I pray and hope is that you brothers out there, as well as you few sisters, are edified by these lessons, man. That's the whole point of us doing these shows, is to build each other up, man. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So with that, I'm gonna give all glory and praises to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem HaKodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, honors and salutations to the hopeful elect, pushing his word, truth, sincerity. Shalom, shalom.